On the 26th of December 2024, Sony Pictures CEO Tony Vinciquerra sat down with the LA Times to discuss what would be his studio's latest cinematic release, and what would end up being the last film released under his tenure, a little-known film called Kraven the Hunter. Fresh off of its rip-roaring opening weekend at the box office, raking in a whimpering $11 million, solidifying its place as the lowest-grossing Sony-made Marvel film of all time, with audiences and critics rightfully tearing it to shreds, such as Tim Roby from The Telegraph, who said the extended Spider-Man universe hits a new rock bottom with this diabolical entry, or Paul Tassi from Forbes echoing that by saying Kraven is in fact terrible. Why then would our good old friend Tony here, a man with 26 years of experience in the film and movie making industry, say this? Kraven was probably the worst launch that we had, which I still don't understand. The film is not a bad film? Are you dumb? I fully understand that you are the CEO of the company who made this thing and you should go down with the ship and all, but are you really gonna die on this specific hill with a film that has this scene in it? Or perhaps this work of art?
How do you know my name? Who set me up? Who took my brother?
Really? I don't think it's an outrageous thing to say that as individuals we may have become a little bit overexposed to the concept of a cinematic or shared universe. Don't get me wrong, I am clearly an absolute sucker for them. I still remember how Tiny Henry's world was absolutely rocked when he first heard about the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour, That So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana, or even Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. I mean, if Dr. Eggman could work his way up to being a world-class gymnast while having the body structure of an upside-down kettlebell, what was stopping me? But nowadays I live in a constant state of fear that after every film, TV show or advert that I see, that it will end in the exact same way as everything else. As I sit there in a constant state of bemusement as I now realise in real time that the precious few hours I have on this earth have been used up so I could help witness the launch of a bajillion-dollar media empire, complete with their own line of toys, clothing and, of course, a blink and you'll miss it crypto rug pull. Nothing can exist on its own anymore, with everything having to promote a sequel, spin-off or extended cut. Stop. Don't look over there. What do you think you're doing? This sort of undercuts everything we've been talking about so far.
Don't forget to subscribe to my Patreon if you want to support me and see more behind-the-scenes footage.
Without trying to sound like I'm doing a supervillain monologue, everywhere we look we can see the forgotten remains of so many doomed cinematic universes. Desperate attempts at corporate synergy as studios try to launch multi-billion-dollar franchises starring every niche character from your childhood.
I am very close to closing on the deal to get the rights to Kool-Aid.
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 The red drink?
Yeah.
The guy who breaks through walls and says, oh yeah?
Yes.
That's exactly what we should be doing, Mr. Mill.
Finally,
Yes.
someone who gets it.
Oh, I get it.
And while this alone would be enough to shake me to my very core, this was only worsened by our more recent additions to this whole situation. Multiverses. What once was an idea allowing for unbelievably memorable or unique twists that kept audiences constantly guessing has been forced to slowly mutate and morph as it sinks deeper and deeper into this toxic cesspool that drains any film of creative merit, all in the name of generating as many Fortnite skins as possible. It's led to this nightmarish scenario where executives all over the globe have been allowed unfettered access to their studio's back catalogue, desperately sifting through decades and decades of work like prospectors panning for gold as they try to bleed as much water from this monumentally big stone as they can, as they sit there grinning menacingly with their Invisalign smile shining brighter than the sun as every single one of them realise in unison that they can profit off the hard work and ideas that someone else came up with more than 20 years ago. And whilst the multiverse is very much a catch-all for every sort of problem that's wrong with this whole medium at the moment, to some extent it works. And that's the worst part of all of this. After everything that I've just said, do you really think you're not going to catch me sitting on release week for The Fantastic Four, Thunderbolts Asterix or Avengers Doomsday, giggling and kicking my feet like a child whenever they casually reference a superhero or pop culture that I'm vaguely familiar with? No. Are you dumb? Mr. Fantastic has big stretchy arms and David Harbour is putting on a funny Russian accent. I'm only a human being. A very dumb one, but I'm still a human being. But for many others out there, they very much do not share my same sentiment. To most, there is a growing feeling that we are very quickly approaching a breaking point. That each stinker after successive stinker and unnecessary spin-off after unnecessary spin-off with no sign of an end in sight is simply too much. And collectively, people are getting fucking fed up with it. You only need to look as far as the reviews of Captain America Brave New World, Mufasa and Moana 2, the backlash to the franchisification of James Bond thanks to our new Amazon overlords, or, I don't know, the fact that Kraven the Hunter, Madam Web and Morbius stank up the gaff so bad that Sony's entire cinematic universe was thrown in the bin quicker than everybody's Kang the Conqueror action figures in 2023. Yes, I do own a Blu-ray copy of Morbius, and no, I will not be taking any further questions. But how on earth did we end up in this situation? Going from 2019, where Infinity War and Endgame grossed over $4 billion at the box office, and was seen by many as a definitive closing point to over a decade of narrative intermingling branches, all the way up to 2025, where in the release to Marvel's latest film, Thunderbolts*, a key selling point to get people to actually sit down and watch this is basically by saying, bro, don't worry, this isn't a Marvel movie. Look at all these other films that people worked on. It's not, trust us this time. What is happening here? Well, we all know that every good comic book character needs an origin story. One where our heroes confront something supernatural, something otherworldly, something they cannot comprehend. So in order to truly understand this nightmarish reality we all find ourselves in, we are going to have to come face to face with a different kind of entity. One that is equally terrifying and has been troubling our kind for eons. The concept of reading a goddamn book. After striking gold with the releases of Dracula and Frankenstein, Universal Pictures felt like they had stumbled upon a surefire way to print money. Find a well-known piece of classic literature, preferably one with a monster or beast sought with an underlying theme of sadness and grief. Whack a man in an excessive amount of makeup and prosthetics, and bada bing, bada boom, the money will come to you. I know I've been moaning about the endless number of sequels and spin-offs, but man, look at that list. That is absurd. The Invisible Man came, went, came back again, had a spin-off with a female, briefly became a spy before returning to wreak havoc once more, and then finally having a late-stage career pivot to starring alongside the comedic stylings of Abbott and Costello. Move over, Dom Toretto, now that's a family with some real character development. After 12 years of following this formula to the letter, audiences started to become numb to the same cheap thrills and spills, with each subsequent release garnering less and less attention. That is until Universal once again backwards stumbled their way upon another golden ticket with 1943's release of Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. What would go on to be known as a first of its kind monster rally, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman would breathe some fresh air into a franchise that was starting to run out of gas, giving audiences the chance to see characters they had become so familiar with go toe to toe with one another to see who would come out on top. Although critically they weren't thought of as in the same league as their earlier films, audiences could not get enough of them, as more and more people clamoured to see this once-in-a-lifetime cinematic spectacle. Well, I say once in a lifetime, they may have done quite a few variations on this exact same idea. Is anyone else getting a sense of deja vu? But it wasn't all sunshine and roses from here on out, leading to Universal's eventual next Hail Mary. Whack a bunch of ghouls and beasts alongside the comedic stylings of Abbott and Costello. It's genius. So I guess after Doomsday flops, we're going to see a variant of Tony Stark take on his biggest challenge yet, Anton Deck's limitless win. I now understand that is an incredibly British reference that will go over many of your heads, so I need to think of a double act that's a bit more universal. Ooh, Taco Bell and intense intestinal pain. That works, I guess. Just like the MCU, although initially successful putting well-known and well-respected actors in incredibly goofy costumes and settings, as the years have gone on, the clamour for more and more has started to reduce at a drastic rate as they've sort of oversaturated their entire industry, with audiences, critics, filmmakers and random idiots standing in front of a green screen in their bedroom constantly talking about its formulaic nature. only for it to be inevitably revived by the once-in-a-fiscal-year crossover event that brings everybody back. Oh yeah, also the fact that all of these characters are pulled straight from the page to the screen to the ring. I can't not say that. I've done so many takes, I can't not say that in KSI. Is my brain broken? I feel like it is. Speaking of the page, you absolutely have to let me nerd out here for a minute, because when I see an opportunity to finally use my English degree, I have to take it. And I am writing this script, so what I say goes. Although this was arguably one of the first examples of a cinematic or shared universe, it's clear the people at Universal Pictures didn't come up with this idea on their own. You can see this exact thing echoed throughout literary history, as when one idea does well, you're probably going to do something similar. I mean, you're looking at an example of that exact thing right now. You may think that the MCU's narrative is long and drawn out, but back in the 19th century, authors had to release their stories in shorter, serialized snippets in newspapers and other periodicals, like Alexandre Dumas's The Count of Monte Cristo, which consisted of 18 volumes that ran for over 2 years. I mean, it's a good book and all, but some sections of it are mind-numbingly boring. And that is coming from an offensively British man who did a degree on books, who is currently talking to you about books. Speaking of offensively British men, hang on, need to get this one out now. Sherlock Holmes was a part of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's life for well over 40 years, amounting to around 4 novels and 56 short stories about a snooty detective, which, weirdly enough, some say was inspired by Edgar Allan Poe's C. Auguste Dupin, whose first appearance in Murders in the Rue Morgue, hang on, where's the page, was later adapted into a movie by Universal Pictures in 1932, starring the same guy they had as Dracula, who also later appeared in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. It is just a sea of idea stealing. This obviously isn't the first example of this practice. Roman, Greek mythology, or just any folklore in general is absolutely steeped with this stuff. I just don't have that many stories about the Hecatoncheires that I can wave and waggle about and look interesting and well read. No idea is ever truly new. The only constant in life is that everything is cyclical. The passengers may change, but whether we like it or not, the wheels will continue to turn, with it all revolving around to one thing time and time again. Money. Do you really think Sir Arthur Conan Doyle kept making Sherlock Holmes stories for the love of the game? No. There have been numerous reports of his absolutely undying hatred for the character that made his name, but crucially, it kept the lights on. Or I guess candles. At the end of the day, we are all creatures of comfort. Originality is not going to bring the masses in. Familiarity will always reign supreme. Don't believe me? Take a look at the top 15 films at the box office in 2024. 14 of those are direct sequels or stories set in another adjacent universe, and number 15 is based off a Colleen Hoover novel. Even looking ahead to films slated to release later in 2025 or 2026, of the 34 films that were unveiled at CinemaCon, 26 of them are direct sequels, reboots or reimaginings. 5 of the remaining 8 are based on a book, which leaves us with 3 original IPs. And 2 of those are Disney/Pixar films. But why? What is going on? All across the globe, cinemas have been closing at an alarming rate as more and more people are opting against watching things on the silver screen and rather choose to watch something in the comfort of their own home. With a lot of this bubbling down to a direct domino effect that was the pandemic, where the sound of hearing people sniffle and cough in a room sort of changed in the minds of people. And while to us the upsides of this are endless, like not having to worry about parking or concessions, or sitting in a room full of strangers mindlessly scrolling TikTok and housing an entire packet of peanut M&Ms about 35 centimeters away from your ear, the studios need to think of a way to entice us back. They need guaranteed returns on their investments. And what is a surefire way to do this that's been proven time and time again? Look at what's worked in the past and do it again. And yet, whilst they continue blindly down this path of nostalgia no matter the cost, thinking it's the only way for people to get their bums back in seats inhaling sweet, salty, buttery popcorn, inadvertently, their dumbass strategy is causing less and less people to want to put their bums in those same seats. As reported by Scott Phillips for Forbes, every single film released in May of 2024, which includes things like Garfield, Furiosa, The Fall Guy and The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, did not make as much money combined as Avengers Endgame did in the first 8 days of its release. That is crazy talk. Studios all across the space have been forced into drastic swings, all in the name of financial security, but time and time again they are taking the easy way out. And while yes, you could look at this and go, well, clearly people only care about super cool comic book movies with funky explosions and stuff, when you actually take a second to look underneath the hood, you realise how monumentally stupid the strategy of these studios has been, with all of it boiling down to a single cataclysmic concoction of 3 separate things. Non-existent marketing campaigns, projects being canned or cancelled at the last minute, or the long list of unbelievably short cinematic releases. Like for instance Mickey 17 rocking up on digital just 18 days after being released in the cinema. Or the most barbaric example to me, this is the June song.
I hope you could guess that was the June song.
The fact that Dune 2 was only in cinema for 45 days before Warner Brothers funneled that thing online. 45 days! Dune 2 is unreal. How do you not give that film the room to breathe? The room to become a cultural moment? The room for people to appreciate Austin Butler making weird ghoul noises like this on the IMAX screen? How do you mess this up that badly, all in the name of getting more people to sign up to your subscription service? All of this means people are actually less inclined to trek all the way to the cinema, because why waste all the effort to actually go there when I can wait a few weeks, it'll wind up on streaming, and I can whack it on whilst I'm cleaning the dishes or eating some food.
You can just see a large amount of people talking about how their consumption habits have changed around movies. However, among younger people, especially younger than us, they're choosing our content. They're watching Lemonade Stand instead of going to the movie, or they're watching I Show Speed, or they're watching, I mean, that's the two.
Never mind. Okay, Despicable Me 5. Push it out. I don't care.
Moana 10, keep it coming.
Which means these films obviously go on to make less at the box office, so studios think we probably shouldn't make another film about that, so then they go back to good old reliable and make another Minions movie, which people obviously go and watch because parents need a break from their children every now and again, which means it makes $1 bajillion, so they become more inclined to make movies like that, and then we just end up in this horrendous cyclone that we find ourselves in. And I mean, don't just take this dumb idiot's word for it. Why not listen to the words of 2 potentially more offensively British men than me that actually have experience in the film industry?
And one other question I want to ask is about those movies and how they're seen, because they've been so successful in theatres.
Yes.
Does that bother you? Like,
yes,
the idea of, and why?
It saddens me that there isn't a kind of a more of a theatrical moment for these movies, or any movie at all, that kind of going, but there's nothing quite like going to the cinema.
You're right, and there is like, it's a fun...
Laughing in a cinema is the best thing in the world.
It is, and there's a fundamental difference between experiencing a movie at home, which has its place, but then the act of paying money and going and sitting in a theatre,
with
as you said, with strangers, and having this collective experience is priceless. It seems a shame that
it is a shame, but this is the way of the world right now, and we kind of have to kind of bend with it, and we have to keep sort of making sure that movies do get into the cinema. That's kind of really, I mean, as long as there's a market for it. I mean, it is a business, so
Again, it feels weird to use an example here of something that I'm absolutely definitely going to see in the cinemas, but just look as far as Toy Story. That's where this cowboy hat is from. As a tiny child, there were only 2 films that I was absolutely obsessed with. Monsters Inc. And, hang on, Toy Story. Yes, I do not know why I still have these. Look how battered they are. I was born the year before the second film came out, and its release on video sort of coincided with something that could be put on at any time to shut me and my sister up. I like to think to this day, if it was put on at any point in or near vicinity, we would activate like sleeper agents and just shut up for the entire runtime of the film. Okay, I was really expecting, oh, I need to do this. The entire runtime of the film. When it was announced in the late 2000s that they were working on a definitive ending to the Toy Story franchise, obviously, me and any other person who had watched those films were stoked. I still remember how much I cried during the film's final moments. I guess 2 final moments? Thinking about it even makes me a little bit upset, you know? But then randomly, 9 years later, when the 4th film was released, I and many others were very much bemused as to why it even existed in the first place. And that train of thought stayed with me throughout the entirety of me watching it and then leaving the cinema. This only being furthered by the fact that a mere 4 years later, Toy Story 5 was announced. Why does this thing exist? Because they knew deep down little idiots like me will have to watch it. It's like a contractual agreement that we don't know we signed. Why get invested in a new narrative that you're not sure you're gonna like when you can sit down for 2 hours, turn your brain off, inhale too much sugar, and watch a animated cowboy get up to no good? That is the state of the medium at this point, and it's alarming. But what makes this whole situation even stranger is the fact that even now, the previously unshakable cinematic titan that is the MCU is finally starting to show cracks, with critics, audiences, and angry Americans in the comment section of my last Marvel video ripping every film released after Endgame to pieces. But then a lot of those same people also said I wasn't allowed to criticize American movies because I'm not American, so take all of that with a pinch of salt. I mean, as we all saw with the big chair reveal a few weeks ago, Marvel has very much delved into the archives in an attempt to bring all of us back. Not only RDJ and the people who wrote and directed their biggest financial hits, but also actors from a previous franchise that will be hitting its 25th birthday this year. But it clearly worked. The video racked up a whopping 5 million views on something that was 5 hours long, and after every subsequent chair reveal, everybody in the comments, including myself, were hooting and hollering like our lives depended on it.
We have to go to this movie now.
You do realize that if we don't see this opening weekend, we will be spoiled faster than the speed of sound.
I'm clearly caught hook, line and sinker, and none of those companies and franchises have any interest in letting me or any of you go at any time in the near future. But like I've said, it's not just Marvel, it's not even just Disney. These franchises, these enterprises are symptomatic for the problems plaguing the movie industry as a whole, prioritizing big bloated budgets with impossible to meet deadlines, which ultimately leads to crunches that work both VFX artists and other crew members to the bone, which is worth a video in itself, all in a collective effort to sell more merchandise and Fortnite skins so they can prop up their bottom line and make their yearly convention reveal more appealing to future investors and shareholders, rather than telling a compelling story that needs to be told. Shortly after the release of Sony's Madam Web, Dakota Johnson sat down for an interview with Bustle, in which she stated that decisions are being made by committees, and art does not do well when it's made by committee. Films are made by a filmmaker and a team of artists around them. Audiences will always be able to sniff out bullshit. Speaking of bullshit, look at Sony. They would have absolutely continued to make D-tier Spider-Man villain spin-off films as they slowly work to build out their Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters. Yes, you heard that right. Hold on a minute. The acronym that Sony chose to use for their cinematic universe was SPUMMOC. And yes, I will be putting a lot of emphasis on the M in that sentence, because it sounds alarmingly similar to a piece of British slang that I definitely don't want to talk about. Google it. Originally, this video was supposed to actually be a direct sequel, more in line with the last Marvel video that I made, where I would watch every single film in the SPUMMOC and basically tell you what I thought about it. But after watching every single one of them, they just sort of blended into one. As a side note, I just want to say here, I do not think I've seen a worse movie in my entire life than Madam Web. And that is coming from a person who at university had to watch a film that was an hour and 40 minutes long with no dialogue, that was just a train on a track. There wasn't any Subway Surfer clips on the side of it or anything. The entirety of a film felt like an advert showcasing 3 potential future films around Spider-Women that could not act. I was taking part in a focus group that I did not sign up for. Just to finish off this tangent here, once I finished watching Madam Web, I sat on the floor of the shower. I didn't say a single word. As a society, I feel like we do not talk about this movie and how bad it was enough. Like the studio heads who very obviously tore that film to pieces deserve to be court-martialed. In case any of you at home haven't seen it, the villain is defeated by the Pepsi logo, and this is after earlier in the film where Madam Web casually holds a can of Pepsi at a barbecue. What sort of sick, twisted message is this film telling us? Anyway, detour aside, even though Kraven, Madam Web and Morbius were memeably bad, that wasn't enough to get audiences interested in it. No one cared about the Spummock. No one wanted to watch the Spummock. I don't even care about the Spummock, and I've watched all 6 films. I think there was 6. I don't even know how many films there were. Audiences spoke with their wallets, and another cinematic universe was purged from our existences. It's a nice feeling, isn't it? This is how things are supposed to feel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This means the world to me. Thank you so much to the Academy. I understand that this is a risk-averse industry. I get it. But $200 million movies are also a risk, you know? And it doesn't always work out, but you take the risk anyway. And instead of making one $200 million movie, try making 20 $10 million movies. Or there are so many people, I just feel so much joy being here. I felt so much joy making this movie, and I want other people to experience that joy. And they are out there, I promise you. The next Martin Scorsese's out there. The next Greta's out there. Both Gretas. They just want a shot, and we can give them one, and this has changed my life.
I'm not saying that every film that's released needs to be a perfect 100 out of 100 on Rotten Tomatoes. Truly, I could not care about that. 2 of my favourite films are Surf's Up and Popstar Never Stop Never Stopping. I think those films are chef's kiss, but IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes do not. I don't care. It's just more so, why can't films exist on their own nowadays? Or just why can't things exist on their own nowadays? Why do I need to pay a monthly subscription service to use Photoshop? What? Adobe is the literal devil. These companies, these organisations do not care about us. Opposed to getting us tied down to one film, they want to ensure that they can generate as much revenue from us as physically possible over the course of many, many years. Obviously, I am fully aware that these franchises, these universes won't stop embarking down this same road. It's too late now, they've already made their decision. But considering the sole core of the medium itself is one with limitless potential to tell the stories of so many different people, from so many different walks of life, with an endless amount of lived experiences to pull from, how is it that every single one of these films can be boiled down to the same formulaic twists and turns, but with what once started out as an innovative way to break free from the confines of the medium by getting fans attached to a complex, intertwining narrative being drip-fed to audiences over several years, has now morphed into this all-consuming black hole, sucking up as much of our attention as possible in the final attempt to sell as many action figures, merchandise and popcorn buckets as they can, with intense studio interference, a misguided vision and cast and crew that clearly do not want to be there, all contributing to this miasma that we find ourselves in, and yet they want us to turn up time and time again to watch more and more of their stuff. At this point, we're not even watching for the story, we're just clocking into work again to see if our favourite brand makes it out unscathed. I'm not acting like I'm never going to see a big corporate franchise film ever again. I may be dumb, but I'm not that dumb. I'm very susceptible to outside influences. Like I've said, I'm definitely going to be watching these films. They've got me where they want me, and that is part of the problem. I'm constantly having to tilt my head so the cowboy hat doesn't fall off. But I like to think in some small way that there's at least a glimmer of hope out there, you know? Hidden beneath the many layers of corporate greed, crossovers of intellectual properties and idea theft, the magic is still well and truly there. But until we dig a little deeper and take some risks ourselves, we'll never find the light at the end of the tunnel.
So that was an experience.
I am the only fucking person in here apart from workers. There's no one here. There is 2 children in here with me. That is it. As you can hear.
I felt like an absolute weirdo being the only adult in there. But just the experience of it was so weird. Every time Jack Black said Minecraft block, all the kids started clapping and screaming, which is just really funny. They sang along with every single song. It was okay. I thought Jason Momoa was quite good. I didn't really understand how Jack Black kept talking like this. It was really weird.
Oh yeah, also, before I forget, I found this unbelievably funny. Every single trailer that was shown in the cinema was a spin-off, sequel or rebrand. Oh yeah, and also, this is the thing that I found crazy. The fact that there was a chicken jockey warning before the film. But it was like, be respectful of your fellow cinema goers. What? And the main character was called Henry. I forgot about that.
A major thanks to everyone over at my Patreon who, thanks to you, I was allowed to see this work of art, so I blame you entirely. So let's list off everyone who's at fault. Emma Evans, April, Earthwormia, Iris Arc, Kobayashimaru, Sneak, Kokumi, Brimslop, Cameo Hanning, Harold Marson, Citra Segment, Scarab, Beverly Smith, Adam D.Y. Ross, and Orlando Guy. All of this was your fault. I hope you're all good. In a bit. Oh, baby, I love the way every day. Yeah. Morbius. I just want to take a moment to say that on the box for Morbius, it says, a new Marvel legend arrives. Did anyone sign for this delivery? Because I feel like I missed it.